You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. If you trade options, you want to be smart about every decision. So why not choose the smartest platform for your trades? At Public.com, you can view upcoming earnings dates directly in the options chain. You can queue and execute multiple orders simultaneously. Easily view contract performance over time. And if you have a question about any stock, you can ask Alpha, their AI for investors. But want to know the smartest part of trading options on Public? Earning rebates on every single contract traded. No other platform provides options trading rebates, and they reduce your trading costs to less than $0 per trade. So, make the smart move and switch to Public.com, the only options trading platform where you can earn rebates on every single contract traded. Paid for by Public Investing. Options not suitable for all investors and carry significant risk. Full disclosures in podcast description. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is noon central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern on a fine, actually not that hot Monday here in Chi-Town. That means it's time once again to commence operations on the movable feast that is the Options Insider Radio Network for this week. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you're rested and raring to go out there in these markets. My name, of course, Mark Longo from a little thing called theoptionsinsider.com. And I moonlight every now and then on the microphone on the Options Insider Radio Network. If you're so inclined, you might want to check them both out. Of course, wherever you're listening to this, if you like what you hear, throw a like, a star, a comment. All of that stuff does get added into the stew that the algorithm sees and helps new people continue to discover the show. I know we've been doing it 17 and a half years. Hard to believe there's new people, but they're out there. Give them a hand to help find their way to reliable options content. There's a lot of shady operators out there. We're not going to lead them down a dark path here. Help them find their way. Leave a rating, a star, a comment. And of course, if you want to find your own way to some awesome content, if I do say so myself, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. More stuff hitting out there, not just the oddities, not just the pro Q&As, which are coming to the dance for, but extras, of course, the giveaways. Of course, even more stuff hitting this weekend early out there on the OIC and interview front. So you folks are just awash in content. I don't know, 300, I've lost track. Closing in on 400 episodes already on the pro up there. More to come all the time. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. As we learn who's joining us on the old program today, it's the Monday show. So we're joined by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, as well as by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. I introduce them now, listeners, because it is time. You know the deal by now. It's the Monday show. We got to kick it off in high style. Going back to our roots a little bit, not just in 80s trivia, but in 80s audio trivia. Can you name that tune? Or in this case, the property that is associated. I won't even say the genre because I think if you hear this in a few seconds, you should know what it is if you lived in the 80s. If you don't, I question whether you lived through the 80s or not. It was a hot thing, hot commodity, spawned a hot star out of it for a while. He's still around, maybe a little bit dubious these days, but he's still around, floating about out there. That's all the hint I will give you. So turn up your speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Can you name that tune? By the way, I might have to mute this after like 10 seconds, I think, because I think if you don't get it by then, which you should, I think they do say the name. So I'll have to maybe mute it around 10 seconds. But we'll see. All right, gentlemen, put your headphones on. Get ready. I'll be watching the buzzers. Only one can win. Can you name this seminal 80s property that this theme song is from? Here we go. All right, there we go. Uncle Mike buzzed in very quickly. I would expect nothing less. That is a pretty straightforward one. I tried to make it easy. I know the Rock Lobster.
I can't believe I didn't buzz faster.
I warned you. I said, have your hand on the buzzer. This is going to be one you should know. I try to make them as broad as possible for you, Mr. Rock Lobster. All right, Mr. Uncle Mike. Name that tune, please, sir.
None other than Knight Rider.
Yes, Knight Rider. That was a pretty straightforward one. I'm trying to go broad, Mr. Rock Lobster. I'm trying to keep you in the game. Yet, alas.
But the worst thing is I knew it right away, and I didn't hit the buzz button.
Oh, see, there you go. The reflexes are going, sir.
Yep.
Let's go. Uncle Mike, 1 point for Knight Rider. I was going to do this. I was thinking about this when I saw it the morning before the show, and it kind of resonated with me, but I thought this would be way too hard. This would just be a fun extra one. Uncle Mike is the only one who will guess it. Uncle Mike, sir, I was going to think about doing this one. 80s wrestling guy, mid-Carter, but a very popular one, won a bunch of belts, was in a WrestleMania one, is in the Hall of Fame.
80s wrestling guy.
is in the Hall of Fame, got announced in the Hall of Fame in 2004, but walked away from the business quite a while ago, became like a elementary school gym teacher in nowhere, New Jersey for the last 20 odd years. Just retired a year ago in June. And also, hint, also a Spanish teacher. Can you name that wrestler, sir? Just for fun.
Tito Santana?
Yes. That once I threw Spanish in there, I knew that would help. Yes, Tito Santana. He's been like a high school gym, not even high school, elementary school gym teacher for the last 20 odd years. Can you imagine rolling into your elementary school? You're like 8 years old and nowhere in New Jersey, and Tito Santana is having you climb the rope. How weird is that? I just happened to see that today. And I was like, oh, that's a weird one. But I knew Rock Lobster would have no chance. I tried to make it a little bit broader. And I still failed. He still
are the only people on planet Earth that know anything about 80s wrestling trivia. The two of you.
I don't know. I might dispute that notion, but I tried to make it broad. You can only blame yourself, Mr. Rock Lobster, as we keep on rolling into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
Welcome to the Trading Block, listeners, a portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading. And man, if only Tito Santana had made a guest appearance on Knight Rider, then all the worlds could have collided out there. Nonetheless, Uncle Mike expanding his lead. Hopefully you knew that theme, listeners. If you didn't know that theme, you might not have lived in the 80s out there. And let's see what's living in the market right now. It's another weird one. Market kind of struggling to find its footing out there today. Trying to figure out, does it want to be a big boy? Does it want to go back under the covers out there today? What kind of market are we having? It's a very split day. The Dow up. Actually, they're exactly moving in opposite directions. Dow up 0.71%. NASDAQ off 0.71%. So they're completely moving in opposite directions. S&P kind of playing the Goldilocks, sitting right in the middle, off about 0.01%, saying, I don't know what I want to be today yet. I'm just going to sit here and watch you two go in crazy extreme directions. And then small caps deciding to be up 0.51% out there today. So again, a mixed bag across the board out there to kick off the week. Of course, they're coming on the heels of the week where we were still mostly rallying, but towards the end of the week, started to see some weakness in the big tech names, notably NVIDIA. I know, crazy that it could actually have a red day, but it had a few. So intriguing stuff out there. All this a long way around to saying our friend VIX Cash is weirdly unched from where it was on the Thursday show. We were on that show right around 13 and a quarter. Kicking off the show today, 13 and a quarter. VVIX also unched 84 even. So Not a lot of evolution, at least from a vol and from a broad market perspective as well. S&P kind of unched out there right now since the Thursday show. A lot to unpack. Mr. Uncle Mike, as our double victor today, both in Knight Rider and in Tito Santana. Any memories of the aforementioned Knight Rider that spawned, of course, the career of one David Hasselhoff? And then B, what's catching your eye out there in a not exactly Knight Rider-y type of day?
Got it. In terms of Knight Rider, I actually owned a Kit. So Kit was the talking car, and you could send in for your Kit that would show you everything you wanted to know about Kit. And I actually owned it at one point. I wish I still had it, but I was definitely a big Knight Rider fan growing up as a kid. It was an exciting thing to say the least. And as for Tito Santana, that's a whole other story. I mean, Tito Santana, he was definitely a mid-carder intercontinental champion. He'd sometimes go in his promos and then yell at the Gene Okerlund in Spanish. And then from there, he had this feud with Jesse the Body Ventura. Jesse would call him Chico Santana and say that he went to Santana's Tacos one time, and they said that he gave him bad tacos, and it was probably Tito Santana's fault. So that's why I called him Chico. So, I mean, if you don't need to, I mean, I don't know how people don't know this stuff, Andrew. I mean, what did you do in the 80s?
Yeah, no, it's, by the way, I missed out on a good bonus question. What is the name of the car? Maybe Rock Lobster could have at least gotten half a point to redeem himself if I had done that one. But, Tito Santana spoke to me today, so that's how we went.
Kit. Yeah, you got to put Tito Santana when I have zero. I had a shot at Kit.
Once I gave you the theme and you blew it, you have no complaints, sir.
Well, I was waiting for the music, and it was silent for like 5 seconds.
No, it was perfect. Tosaw buzzed in.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm going to make all the excuses I can make for Mr. Knight Rider.
I warned you.
Consider I never actually saw the show.
I said, make sure you could hear. I even tested you. I said, can you hear the theme music today? You said yes. So that is all
I could hear it, but there was a delay for the music start.
Yes. Okay. That's what it was. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, have at it.
All right. Well, in terms of markets today, we're a little bit flat at this stage. In terms of the sectors that we have going on today, nothing's really doing we do have a little bit of a pop in energy with XLE up 2%. But other than that, I mean, you could say that we have a little bit moving in healthcare, but there's really nothing that is really standing out in a major way by any means. What is happening is that there's certain things that are up, and then technology is down on the day. And so I think it's because of that we ultimately have a flat market. And the elephant in the room, the Knight Rider of this market, NVIDIA, is down 5% on the day. So when you have NVIDIA down 5%, because it's become such a big part of the stock market, it's hard to have an up market when things like that happen. And so just some other names of note. Facebook is back over the Meta is back over the 500 mark. We have Big Blue, IBM up $4 on the day. Ford is up 33 cents today, just under $3 or just under 3%. Apple is making another run at the 210 mark, up over $2.50 on the day. So we do have a few names that are doing stuff, so to speak. But ultimately, when NVIDIA is down, it's difficult to have an update in the market. Silver is flat on the day, and bonds are rather flat as well. So that's all I got for right now, unless anyone wants to talk more about Tito Santana and some of his other wrestling feuds in the 80s. But Mr. Giovinazzi is too crabby to do that.
Did you do your hair up? You had the Kit. Did you do your hair up in a little perm, like a little Michael Knight? I could see a little Tosaw running around with a Michael Knight perm. That'd be kind of funny.
I was not quite that into it.
Or maybe the leather jacket, at least. You can go that far. That'd be kind of cool.
That would have been cool. I'd be the only third grader with a leather jacket.
You would be rocking the look. Leather jacket and the perm. That would certainly be memorable. Right now, looking at the numbers, the producers have just updated the totals. Our standings right now, listeners, as of today's results, Uncle Mike at a commanding lead with 8 points. Rock Lobster, he was closing the gap as of a couple of weeks ago. It was a 5.5 points to 6. It was anyone's game, and then Tosaw ran away with it last 2 weeks. Choose your own adventure last week. This week, Knight Rider. Rock Lobster has no one to blame but himself. 8 to 5.5. He's got to start digging. Maybe spend the weekends, put it to good use, study, just crack open a book of 80s trivia, see if you can figure something out. In the meantime, sir, while you're getting ready to study, what's catching your eye in the markets?
Well, my thing is we've got two volatility issues. One, we have a heightened vol risk premium. So like realized vol in SPX is going to nothing. And VIX cash has stopped going down for the last week or so, I believe. So you have a disconnect between those two things. So that's one thing. So basically the market's going up and volatility is going up at the same time, which can happen from time to time, but it's not normally a great market signal if you're bullish, right? So the bottom of VIX was on the 13th, and it is now 10 days later, 10 calendar days later, and we're now trading. We almost traded 14 this morning. I know a little weekend markup, but still. So now during that same period of time, we go to the 13th, June 13th. SPX traded 54.02, and we've traded as high as 5,500, and we're down to 54.65. So about 1.5%. So we haven't had that much of a volatile move in SPX with VIX up during the same period, which is all kind of a little weird in my book. So you have that piece. And then you have the fact that you have like a 6% realized vol in SPX and VIX is 1335. So at some point you would think volatility would start to drop, but it's not. And of course, I think the problem or the gorilla, like you say, the elephant in the room is NVIDIA and Apple are two huge components of the market. And I don't think the market is prepared for both of them to kind of sell off at once. And so at least today, one's up, one's down. That gives you SPX relatively flat. Q, though, not doing well. It's, again, a lot of mixed signals, I think. We're early in the summer. We don't have earnings for, another couple of weeks, 3 weeks. We don't have big tech earnings for 5 weeks, maybe. And you're not seeing lower vols. So I find it all very curious. I think from a trading point of view, I think it's a difficult market to trade. Probably do better just taking the month off until past the 4th of July at this point. Which doesn't sound like a terrible idea. And, unless you want to run maybe some iron condors or something like that, or some more, I would say, strategic short vol trades. There are some names that are performing, like Walmart, all-time high today, I believe. And the oil sector is starting to move. So I think some individual sectors are doing well. But for the most part, you're getting like broad market trading is kind of tough. So the premium sellers might, they might win here because, vol's not holding up and we're not moving enough. So, and I think that's kind of what I see currently anyway. But that the vol risk premium and the kind of the SPX VIX correlations running together they're not bullish things in my book. As bullish as I feel right now overall, they're not necessarily bullish market indicators right now.
It'd be interesting to see. This market rallied mostly on the back of NVIDIA and a handful of other names. If NVIDIA keeps this up, these daily sell-offs here for a little while, it'll be interesting to see if the market can survive that. We've all said, this has been NVIDIA's market. You ride the NVIDIA elevator up, you're gonna ride it back down again as well. That's certainly, or if the bulls can make a case to keep rallying, even with NVIDIA selling off like we're doing today. Intriguing stuff. Let's see what's intriguing out there in the land of options and indeed volatility. Yeah, it's not all Knight Rider here on the show, listeners. It's just mostly Knight Rider, especially on days like today when not a heck of a lot, to be fair, is really lighting up the tape to kick things off out there today. VIX doing a seasonally appropriate 261,000 contracts right now. So just barely north of 250,000 contracts out there. Not exactly blowing the doors off. This time a show last week, we were doing some days, 750,000, 3x that. So kind of light out there today. If you're wondering what the big dog is out there today, it looks like most of the paper, over 110,000 of that 261 coming. It looks like a July 26, 65, maybe a vertical. They're both going up. 63,000 of the 65s and 47,000 of the 26s. Doesn't look like they're a spread. They're just going up independent of each other. 4 cents for the 65s, listeners. That sounds like a Matt trade. Our buddy, Mr. Matt from Oraz. He likes his garbage. I don't know if expiring on July 17th is far enough out for his garbage trade, but 65 handle, that certainly qualifies as garbage. 4 cents, listeners. Are you a buyer or are you a seller at that level out there? Maybe that might be a fun little flash poll to put out there maybe a little bit later as we keep on rolling. Let's go out to SPY. SPY, though, is kind of hanging firm out there, hanging steady. 4.5 million contracts, so about where we expect it to be, maybe a little bit higher, actually. So that's respectable. The ADV 7.03. By the way, the ADV in the VIX is 822,000 contracts out there. So kind of treading water in VIX land. The S, 1.7 million, about where we expect it now as well in this new 0-day era. 2.99 million on the tape. By the way, if you're curious, the fate of 0-day, when are we going to get, your Apple, Tesla, NVIDIA 0 days? What's gumming up the works on these things? How long is it going to take? What are the obstacles? I had that conversation with just about everybody in the world of options. So if you're not checking out the shows I did down at OIC, not just the panels, but the conversations I had, we talked about all that stuff. Bitcoin options. Everything you all wanted us to talk about. 24-hour trading. Will it happen? How will it impact options? And 0-day stuff. The options flow. Even snuck in some flex because that's the hot thing these days. So you're not checking out these conversations and you have these questions. I know a lot of you do. You're hitting us up with these questions all the time. You should listen to it. I put your questions to all the movers and shakers of the world of options. You could hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Check those out. If you listen to the network, it's all there. Actually, more of it's coming. So stay tuned. If you're on the pro, you already got most of it. So fun stuff afoot and some interesting and maybe scary stuff there. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Small caps right now, 650,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV about 1.2 million. And the Qs, about 2.25 million contracts right now. The ADV, 3.42 million out there. Let's go out to the single name action, such as it is. Is anything lighting up the tape out there today? Well, once you get past, let's say, the top 3, they're doing some paper. Outside of that, kind of a bit of a snooze fest. Let's talk about Knight Rider some more. Number 10, listeners. The funny thing is, it's not a snooze fest in the underlying. They're moving. They're just not putting up the commensurate options paper you might expect. Number 10 only cost you 167,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That's pretty light. I consider $1.50 to be the threshold, the cutoff. If the options market is open, anything is happening at all, you should expect by this time of day at least $1.50 to break into the top 10. We are barely north of that today, 167 of the top 10. That gets us to good old SMCI selling off, following NVIDIA's lead. Some clear profit taken out there. 82.10 off nearly 56 handles. That's just this past month, 6.17% this past month. Today, it's off nearly 76 handles, or 8.3%. So kind of a rough run here the last few sessions for SMCI. But again, you can't complain. This thing's been a banger. Just year to date, it's up nearly 200%, even with today's sell-off. So kind of hard to feel sad for them. They got a long way to go. They got to get back to 285 listeners just to be unched on the year, let alone the calendar year. You go back a full calendar year, my God, it's up 285%. So they got a long way to go. They could shed a couple of 100 points and not be the worst for wear. Number 10, 167 on the tape for SMCI. Number 9, going back to the land of everything old is new again, it's Micron. 139.93, up about 39 cents, or about 0.25%. Not exactly a banger day for them right now. They had a bit of a range, though, almost exactly a $5 range today. 137.89 on the dark side, 142.83 on the upside there. Hanging out exactly 140, just tick right now. So middle of that range today. So they were moving and shaking, but all that materializing in only 167. So we actually have a tie for 10/9, $1.67 each Again, that's kind of sleepy paper. That gets us to Micron. So even though the underlyings are moving, nearly 80 handles in the case of SMCI, they're just not delivering the paper. We're getting to that time of year, listeners. That's part of our question of the week. We'll get there in a little bit. Number 9, or I should say number 8, the artist formerly known as Facebook. It is Meta. 496.30, up about $1.50, or about 1/3%. Good for 211,000 contracts. And the number 8 spot, I mean, I pretty much, before I even ran these numbers, I wrote up the names I thought were going to be in the top 10, and it's pretty much all the ones you would expect. I don't think it had a single surprise today, listeners. So it's one of those days. Number 7, Palantir, 211. They're up about $0.33, 24.12 right now, 1.25%. Good for number 7, 211,000 contracts. Number 6, it's Game, 24.14, up 21 cents, or nearly a full percent today. So a bit of a rounding error for them today. Let's see what kind of day they've been having. They actually had about a $1.60 almost range, 23.25 to the dark side, 24.83 to the light side, hanging out exactly $24 right now. Good for number 6, 244,000. So all the way up at number 6, not even north of 250,000 contracts out there, listeners. Number 5, to the A, tech names we go. I hope you like them. We got a few of them for you today. Number 5, it's AMD, 393 on the tape. 160.84, off 39 cents, or not even 0.5%. So they're shaking off the NVIDIA sell-off. They got down as low as 158.19 today, and the high was 163.40. So they have sold off today, just not as aggressively as what's going on out there in NVIDIA. Either way, number 5, 393 on the tape for AMD. You want more tech names that start with A? We got them for you. Number 4, it's the Amazonians. 186.5, off $2.50 today, or 1.3%. Their range was pretty wide today as well. 186.47 to the dark side, so they're just bounced off it. And 191 was the high, 191 even. So they've been mostly selling off today. And again, good for decent paper for them, 650 on the tape. So that at least is respectable. So our top 4 are moderately respectable. Number 3, another A tech name, Apple, 210.07, up nearly 260, or 1.25%. They've had over a $6 range. That's a huge range for Apple. 212.70 was the high, 206.59 was the low. Coming off another rash of bad headlines for Apple. EU threatening to hit them again with another antitrust fine. Not usually the environment where the underlying rally is $2.50, but anything can happen these days. And apparently a massive EU fine is bullish for Apple. Sure, let's just pay more money to the folks out there in EU. Number 3, Apple, 998,000. So almost 1 million contracts on the tape out there in fruit company land, listeners, which is kind of interesting. No, we don't ever do this. We run the other ones. Let's look really quickly at the fruit company, because there's been some weird paper out there of late. Let's see if we can find anything intriguing making up this nearly 1 million contracts. All right, there we go. I'll fire up the old Flowmaster machine, see what they've got cooking out there. The big dog today, listeners, we're at about 210 exactly. Go figure. It's the 210 calls going out this week. 87,000 of those bad boys going up against 76,000 of the 215s, all opening. 212.5, 65,000 of those. And then 55,000 of the 210 puts. Again, all this expiring this week. So I wouldn't call it 0 day. I would call it 0 week, but not 0 day. Either way, though, a lot of opening paper all around the weekly at the money strike. I mean, you're talking there 300,000+ contracts just in those. If you add on the 207 half puts that are also going up to this week, 45,000 times. You got a lot of paper just in those top 4 or 5 out there. But only good for number 3, because number 2, it's Tesla, listeners. 183.79, up about 79 cents, or nearly 0.5% today. They've had a wild range as well. 182.60 to the dark side, 188.80 to the light side. So they've had $6.20 range already today. Good for 1.13 million contracts. And then you know what the big dog is, listeners. It's just a question of how much freaking paper is this name going to put up. We just ran it. I'm going to run it again because you know it's jumped even since then. Actually, not that much. It was 4.82 million. Now it's 4.91 million. That's, of course, NVIDIA. And I say not much. I mean, that is ridiculous volume for any other name pretty much in the market. You're talking way more than SPY even. But that's where NVIDIA is now, threatening 11 million contracts. When we were on the show last Thursday, the Flowmaster was debating whether we would hit 11 million. I thought north of 10. He was saying 11.6. I think it averaged out right around 10.6 at the end of the day. Still the most impressive day in the history of single name options ever by a country mile. So if you want that data, check it out. Flowmaster tweets it out. He always puts it on his LinkedIn as well. So a good place to follow him for some interesting flow data. NVIDIA right now, 119.20 off 740 or nearly 6% today. And they have rebounded off their lows. Their lows was 118.29, so they're 90 cents north of that right now. But they are coming for NVIDIA today. Over the past 5 days, it is off 13.6 handles or 10.25%. So yeah, just they are coming for NVIDIA. Forget that. Even through Thursday of last week, got up to 139. So they're off 20 handles from Thursday of last week, which is a big move in this split adjusted era out here, listeners. Giving up 200 handles in the old NVIDIA out there. Nothing to sneeze at out there. Either way, a weird market out there, listeners. If you're looking to sink your teeth into something concrete in this kind of quiet season, there is still some announcements on the docket out here. You got Carnival Cruise Lines tomorrow before the open. You got FedEx after the bell tomorrow. On Wednesday, we're just talking about everything old is new again. It's Micron on Wednesday after the bell, as well as Levi's. You want to see some jeans action, and Jeffries. All the names that have been lighting up our unusual activity recently. I wonder why. All three of those have been talked about recently. McCormick Spices before the bell on Thursday. You got some footwear vol in terms of Nike on Thursday after the bell as well. So a lot of things popping off. My old favorite, Walgreens Boots Alliance on Thursday as well. So a lot of names popping off this week. Let's look really quickly. Let's go to FedEx, 25th after the bell. 253 and 2/3 is where they were when we ran this report. They were pricing in 17 and a third. In the past, they've moved 14.64. $2.70 worth of extra juice in FedEx. Wow. Is that merited, listeners? I don't know. Wait till we get to Micron. Talk about extra juice. My goodness. Micron, 26 after the bell. 139.5 is where they were when we ran these numbers. They were pricing in 17 and a quarter in their at the money straddle. In the past, they've moved $7.77. So they've priced in $9.50, more than double their previous straddle. My goodness. Wow. The game is afoot in Micron these days, listeners. That is a heck of a lot of extra juice. Now, Micron has been rocking and rolling. I mean, over the last month, it is up 8%, 10 and a quarter. I mean, that's not even the straddle move. That's just in the last month. My goodness. It's off 14 handles since late last week, though. So, I mean, it has been moving, but my goodness. More than double their straddle, their previous movements. That's a lot of juice in Micron. I might need to take a second look at Micron this week, listeners. They're popping off 26 after the bell. You probably should, too, if you like a little bit of action out there. Speaking of action, this season has been delivering for you. You can't argue that. 117% is where we stand right now. That's against our long-term average of 109%. So, yeah, just buy the vol. Apparently, you got to buy that 17 and a quarter straddle in Micron. That's what these numbers are telling us, listeners, because they are just outperforming left, right, and center across the board on the vol side. Check out all this data if you are intrigued, listeners. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go, as now it is time for us to go into the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, listeners, let's get weird. Let's get wild. Let's get, perhaps, dare I say it, whimsical even, listeners. Let's get out to a little bit of unusual activity. Let's kick things off in a name. I'm trying to think. This one is not ringing a bell. If we have talked about it, it has been some time. We're going out to RXO, listeners. Ticker symbol RXO, appropriately enough. Sounds like a biotech, but it is actually a logistics name. Trading 24 and 3/4 up $4.50 or 22.5%. I wonder why it's lighting up our tape today. RXO on fire. Looks like they have a deal with Coyote Logistics, and so they're merging, become the third biggest. Yeah, they're buying Coyote Logistics from UPS. Going to become the third largest logistics company. So stock popping hard today. Apparently, usually you don't see the acquirer popping, but That's what we're seeing out there today. 24 and 3/4 up $4.50 or 22.5%. So rip roaring day here, quite literally, for RXO. The rest of the year, a year ago, was $21.50. And then right before this announcement last week, it was trading about $20 even. So they were actually down on the year. So this deal turning things around. They're now up 15% on the year at $3.25. Almost exactly all of that on the back of this deal today. And Mr. Rock Lobster, what do we got after this big corporate action announcement out here? Is someone diving into the calls saying, hey, I want to scoop a little bit more upside? No, it looks like maybe they're either concerned about this deal falling through, or maybe they just want to protect what they got today, because someone came in this morning and scooped 1,014 to kick things off of the July 22 half puts. I said we're at 24 and 3/4 right now. We were at $20 pretty much even before the announcement. So blowing through this strike this morning, they decided, hey, how are these puts 15 at 20? They said, we'll buy them 1,014 times for 20 cents. And then they came back a few seconds later, said, how are they now? And they said, yeah, still 15 at 20. You didn't buy that many. So they said, okay, we'll buy another 1,346. And so on and so forth out here today. Looks like they had bought, I believe, a total of about 5,000. If I can pull up, let's see, what is the number? 3,600 total. 3,600 on the day of these puts. For prices, around, looks like 20 cents was the total. So Mr. Rock Lobster, could be somebody taking a flyer. They're sitting on some profits. They don't want to give it all up. Maybe if something weird happens, I didn't look at the cash or what the terms are of this deal. Usually once these things are announced, listeners, the stock shoots pretty much to the deal price and kind of hangs out there. So not usually a banger trade to do a lot of long premium trades around these mergers, unless you're afraid of something or unless you know something. Mr. Rock Lobster, 3,600 of these July 22 half puts, now about $2.25 out of the money puts. We got a takeover going on. What are your thoughts, sir? This is the part of the show where you unmute and share your thoughts, sir.
Oh, I did, but I was muted. I'm still recovering from that mute button I had on
the trauma.
during the trivia.
The trauma of Knight Rider shall never leave you, sir.
It's haunting me still into the show. Didn't you say this was RXO was acquiring the assets from?
Yeah, that's what's weird about it. Looks like they say they have a deal. UPS is selling Coyote Logistics to RXO. So you don't usually see the acquirer popping hard. I guess they need.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe that's why they're buying the puts. Possible. Even that, what are they, 20? What's the low of the year? I mean, that's the only thing I could think of right there. Or if they piled into the stock, they bought some puts for some short term. Kind of an odd one. Could work, of course. Anything could work. And right now, they're actually up on their puts, so there's very low open interest in this. It looks like there was some open interest on the August 15 puts. But other than that, I mean, the open interest on here is, besides that one August strike, is only about, a couple thousand contracts tops. So it's an odd, it's an odd purchase, aptly named, but whoever is buying these are definitely looking for a retracement, or they were somebody that has been a put buyer before, and they're now trying this flavor. If it was the August 15, it was the August 15 open interest. So that's possible.
Possible indeed. You like these, listeners? Would you pay 20 cents? I mean, this stock, if past its prologue, probably going to hang out close to where it is right now till this deal is closed. So 20 cents, probably going the way of the dodo, but maybe you're sitting on a lot of shares. Maybe you don't mind that little bit of peace of mind you're buying here. But a weird trade heading out of a deal like this. So worthy of note. And again, we said it's kind of a light day out there, listeners, so we're kind of scraping the barrel. Not a lot of swinging for the upside biotech calls or anything like that. So instead, let's go back to our friend, the Huntsman. Ticker symbol HUN. You know them. Chemical maker. We just like calling them the Hun because it sounds fun. Trading 23.25 today, off 21 cents, or nearly 1%. What kind of year has it been in chemicals? It's been mostly a bad one. It was 25.75 a year ago, so they're off $2.50 about exactly, or nearly 10% on the year. They are off their lows. The high came, by the way, in July of last year, nearly $30. The low was 22.14. Looks like they hit that back in October on Halloween. They threatened it again recently, so they're hanging out near their lows for the year. Rough time for the Hun. Also makes this trade kind of interesting. Doesn't seem, Mr. Rock Lobster, like somebody thinks things are turning around for the Hun anytime soon. The Hun isn't coming across your borders anytime soon to invade and pillage. We got 18,000 of the, I crack myself up, listen, 18,000 of the July 24s going up today. These are about 75-cent out of the money calls. Going up for 38 cents. So they had a hefty bid. By the way, that is through the bid. Looks like paper crushing these. They were 40 cents at 45. They sold 18,000 at 38 cents. So they came for size through the bid to get them done. The stock was 23.61 at the time. So far, they are on the right side of history. The stock has fallen nearly 40 cents since they wrote these. So pretty much exactly the amount that they sold the calls for, the stock has fallen. So I guess that works out from that perspective. So if you hang out here for the next month, which it seems like somebody thinks we're going to do, then they pocketed 40 cents nearly 18,000 times. No earnings here. Earnings are outside of this on July 31st, which again makes this a good kind of sleepy summer season covered call. Take some money off the table, but don't go through earnings. You don't want to go over that waterfall if you don't have to. Catching a little premium, putting it in your back pocket for a quiet summer day. Mr. Rock Lobster, somebody coming to harvest for size in the Hun.
It's probably one of those Huntsman family members. They need some dough. So how much? What does that get them? 18. So that gets them what? $750,000, something like that.
It's enough for your proverbial measure a few times over of the significant other's Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, you can get one for each girlfriend, pretty much. With that.
Are you saying a scion of the family called up the broker and says, "I need $750,000. What can you do for me?"
Well, you are sitting on almost 2 million shares of Hun. Why don't you sell some calls? Oh, great idea.
He's like, "I will now go buy the Ferraris. Thank you."
Yes, and actually, day one they look pretty savvy on these. They're already offered lower, so. And this is one of those days I can remember trading where on the SIBO, where it's so quiet you can hear the time clocks tick.
Yeah, these days were rough. These are the days where, people were cutting things out of the back of magazines, because they still had magazines back then, and hanging them on people's backs, usually inappropriate imagery, to put it mildly. And people were leaving. They were at series already by this time of the day, if not earlier. And fun was, these were the hard, everyone thinks the crazy days are hard. Those kind of go by pretty quick, and you're lost in the maelstrom and the cacophony and the madness, and then it's over. But these days, whether you're watching paint dry, that makes it rough to stay on your A game for 8 hours,
Yeah, it's true. And then you're hearing the time clocks like tick, tick. Like it's definitely, it was definitely a slow day. And that's when you can see like, What's odd is you have this, like I said, little vol expansion. I think the market is like, okay, maybe this NVIDIA going up 40% it was at the peak, in a month might have been a little heavy after it's already up, 80% or 100% for the year or something crazy. So, it is possible that we pull back a little bit. I think a pullback would be healthy. But I'm holding my breath till I actually see it happen.
And listeners, you don't have to hold your breath anymore to find out how this trade we profiled back on April 19th in your favorite, everyone's favorite, Compagnia Siderurgica. Siderurgica. There's an extra U in there, extra vowel in there, which kind of throws me. Compagnia Siderurgica Nacional SA. Ticker symbol SID. Let's just go with SID. April 19th. We talked about this one, listeners. This is the name of trading $2.37 right now. On the year, was trading $2.75, so it's been a rough year for them. They actually sold off through into Halloween, got down to $2.11. Then they rallied it hard. It was a good run for them. This is the National Steel Company of Brazil. Let's talked about them many times. They rallied all the way to $4 from $2.12 in Halloween to end of the year, not even January, December 27th. They hit $4. So they had almost exactly doubled in the span of just a few months. And then ever since then, listeners, it has been pretty much nothing but downside. In fact, this just year to date, starting this year, they're off 40% almost. In fact, they were off 40% last week. They've rallied a little bit today. That helped them. But my goodness, rough time, rough year out here in good old Sid. And what do we profile back on April 19th? Somebody swinging for some upside fences. You might say that sounds like a bad do, but we'll find out, listeners. They came on April 19th and bought 3,873 of the May 2 haps. They paid 25 cents lifting the offer. That was a 38 vol. The stock was 271 at the time, so that explains a lot of it. In fact, we said at the time we didn't hate these. They were only 4 cents over parity. You're paying 25 cents. They were worth 21 cents. So it's a 4-cent swing of the dice. And you know what happened, listeners? Earnings were April 8th. So they did get earnings in this. So they got earnings, all of that for 4 cents. Wasn't a bad do, as they say, from a value perspective. And you know what happened? Pretty much a whole lot of nothing. Stock closed $2.77. So they paid 25 cents for them. They went out worth 27 cents. So pretty much a scratch on these bad boys. They were still open at the end. They pretty much broke even and paid for their commissions. So not a lot of excitement to be had there, unfortunately. All those of you who are waiting with bated breath, I can't report to you anything exciting on the SID front. But if you're waiting for the strategy block, get ready, because it starts now.
It's time to dispense options wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, everybody. Let's get to it. It's Monday. Time for Uncle Mike to hold court. He's got 10 minutes to regale us on how to build your kit model from Knight Rider. Go, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, I mean, it's what more could you possibly need than your kit when you're in second grade and you're the talk of the school. You're the one whose parents helped you send in the information for it. You got the kit thing in the mail. That was back when it was cool to get stuff in the mail. I mean, granted, now you get Amazon boxes. I guess that's kind of a cool feeling when you're satisfying your retail urge. But kit, that was a special moment. But another special moment is that right now, with markets at or near all-time highs in a lot of areas, hedging becomes cool again, or uncool, depending on what school of thought you're in. I think it's a good time to consider doing some hedging in one way, shape, or form with markets higher, because after all, overall, never before in the history of the entire stock market has there ever been a better time to sell than, well, recently. But I think hedging is something that's very important. One way with which to do it, in that if you are at a stage in your portfolio, you're trading, should I hedge? Should I not hedge? Should I view it as an overall different asset class all around? What should I do? I'd like to say that a simple way with which you can work a hedge, what I'm looking at right now is I'm simply buying put options front month. Now, you might say, well, but Mike, you're giving up premium, you're doing this, you're doing that. Well, yes, you are in a lot of ways, but we're at all-time highs for crying out loud, and the VIX is fairly low. That's my comeback to that. Now, that's the simple way with which you can do it. Now, if you want to get a little bit more complex in terms of hedging your overall portfolio, what you can do is you can perhaps sell some covered calls to finance the cost of the put. You could maybe buy a put spread if that's something with which you're interested in doing. But one thing that I would recommend at this point, if you're concerned of an immediate drop in the market and something unexpected, you're probably going to be better off doing something a little bit more near term than something a little bit more long term, just because of the fact that you want to be able to capture some of the downside with your put option hedge. Now, how do you finance it? That's a topic for another day. But what I would like to mention right now is that if you are looking to hedge, it's not a bad time to do it whenever you have high market and low vol. It's typically something to where buying premium, it's probably not going to be the worst thing in the world, but I would definitely look into doing it. I'll be doing a webinar on this tomorrow night, so follow me on Twitter, which I'll talk about in a second for more information on the webinar.
All right, buying premium. That leads us right into our question of the week, which we'll get to as we go around the block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
I lied, listeners. We're going to go Mail Block first here. Last week, we asked you about GameStop. So there's a lot of debate about it. What's going on? Is there shady business afoot? Is there blatant overreach by regulators, or do you not care? 62.3% of you came down on there is shady business afoot. 24.6% of you don't care, and 13.1% say the regulators just want headlines. This week, getting to what Uncle Mike was just talking about. He said, the weather is hot. Realize the vol is low. Markets are at all-time highs. What option strategies do you anticipate using the most during the traditionally quiet period in the markets from now until Labor Day? Gave you 3 choices and the infamous other. Long calls, long puts, or verticals. So essentially long premium type trades. Short calls, short puts, short verticals. So harvesting some premium. Calendars and diagonals, kind of some of your more, exotic strategies, or the infamous other. That's our question of the week right now. We'll get to those results in a little bit. I also wanted to hit on this one here from the Mail Block because it just struck me as funny, Mr. Rock Lobster. This came in. Our shows go out on all different platforms, including some you may not expect. Obviously, YouTube is one of them, Audible. Also on LinkedIn, people get the shows out there as well. And this person chimed in, Robert Kohler. He just said he can't wait to hear what's been happening in the options and volatility world this week on the, quote, stormy shores of Maine and some other places. Very informative, yet incredibly entertaining show. Well, thank you, Robert Kohler. So there you go, Mr. Rock Lobster. I am single-handedly promoting the shores of Maine as a tourist destination. Maybe in a backhanded way, but I'm doing it for you, sir. What do you think?
Who would have thought the volatility tourists would come to Maine? Who would have thought it? Hard to believe. Hard to believe.
I joke about Austin being the southern volatility mecca. Maybe we need a East Coast, actually literally on the shore volatility mecca. Because that would be...
Well, didn't there used to be the Google search a couple years ago?
Yes.
Like Maine was the number one
You were
option.
the king. You know what? We haven't run that in a while. It's middle of the year. Might be a good time to check up on our Google search data. Producers take note. Might be a fun segment to come up. But there you go. Robert Kohler, clearly a lot of the audience, Mr. Rock Lobster, enjoying their check-ins from the dark, stormy, dare I say it, hellacious shores of Maine as we keep on rolling and we go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, let's go around the block. Let's start with the rockingest of lobsters from the shore of Maine. Mr. Rock Lobster, our question of the week is, which option strategies does our audience anticipate using the most during this traditionally quiet period? They're going to go long premium, short premium, kind of calendars, diagonals, or others. What do you think their vote is? And then B, what are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday show?
Me personally, I'm doing less. But
yeah, you said go home until July 4th, which is saying a lot for a trading mentor.
Yes.
Just don't trade.
Sometimes taking your cookies and, hiding in the corner and eating them for a while until we have a little more action. But we'll see. Maybe there could be some action. I do have open positions. I think people actually are going to be in the premium selling mode for our so we'll say short call put vertical style. I think that's what they're going to be doing until Labor Day. I'm going to go with that.
Interesting. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. Where do you fall if you have a vote in our poll? Which way do you think our audience is going? They long premium, they short premium, they diagonals, or they other? And then C, what are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday adventure, sir?
Audience, I think, is diagonal. Me personally, I am actually a mix of long premium and diagonal. And going into Thursday, watching for more new all-time highs. I mean, what the heck? It's summer. What else are you going to do? Go buy some stock, people. Come on. Let's just go do this. Now, just watching things, there's nothing specific that I have to watch right now. I'm watching for the unwatchable, meaning some type of unexpected catalyst that'll come in. That's what I'm watching for right now.
Watching for the unwatchable. I like it, sir. Unfortunately, that music means we've come to the end of our Knight Rider-esque journey through the world of options. Listeners, if you're listening to this, did you don your leather jacket? Did you put on maybe a perm wig? You having fun out there? Did you get that trivia question? Or were you like the rock lobster, a little bit too slow on the buzzer? Right now, our audience is all over calendars and diagonals. That shows you we speak to the hardcores out there. 2/3 of the audience, again, this has only been live a little bit, listeners, so I fully expect this to evolve once it comes into contact with more of the audience. But 2/3 right now saying they want to go calendars and diagonals. I do not expect that to win. I would be very surprised. Long calls, puts, and verticals getting a third. No votes at all for short premium. That's just bonkers to me. So we'll see. Once people start waking up to start trading this week, we'll see how their votes break down, listeners. And let's go around the horn. Let's see what the rest of our audience, or I should say rest of our panelists, have in store for you until the next time we gather here together on the old OB. Let's start with the Uncleest of Mikes. If they want more Uncle Mike goodness, maybe a webinar, Mr. Uncle Mike. Where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw. I'll have a webinar this tomorrow night. I'll have an invite out on there. It actually is already posted on my Twitter, but feel free to follow me. Also, if you are looking for a financial advisor who is in the option space and is not afraid to say the H word, meaning hedge, feel free to reach out to me. stcharleswealth.com. Would love to have a conversation with anybody.
He means it, literally anybody. So if your grandmother is bored, you want someone to talk to, have her call Uncle Mike, stcharleswealth.com. He's a fun guy to chat with. They can talk about 80s shows, and maybe if your grandma is into the wrestling, they can talk about that, and maybe a covered call or two as well. stcharleswealth.com, the place to go. And Mr. Rock Lobster, if their grandmother wants to chat with you, where should they go? What should they do?
888-TRADE-01. If they want to join Option Pit University, tell them to come on over. The water's warm. Content we're putting up every week. Probably, I'm going to say it's the best option content out there if you want to learn how to trade options. So check it all out. There you go.
Is this an accredited 4-year school? Can I send my kid for 4 years to Option Pit U? Come away with a good BS? What does he get?
You will get. Put it this way: if he wants to learn options, you'd be hard pressed to find a better place to send him. I'll write up a certificate for him. What the heck?
Get a sweet certificate signed by the Rock Lobster. Hey, I'll save close to 6 figures a year. That's a good do in and of itself.
A collector's item. I'll tell him I'll give you
the difference that I'm saving, and he could save all that. And he'd come out with you'll be ahead of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? He can do all your prep on the show. He'll be educated.
There you go. I'll put him to work. I like the idea of this Option Pit U. If you too want your kid to get an accredited 4-year degree over there, the ivy-covered halls of Option Pit U. That's going to do it for us on the OB today, but not going to do it for us on the network. No siree. The producers aren't that nice, listeners. I'm back in a little bit to break down all the madness in the world of crypto on, you guessed it, the Crypto Rundown. Back again tomorrow for a little taste of the old advisor's option with our buddy Mr. Matt from Orats and special guest who's going to join us. You got to tune in to find out. Wednesday doing double duty once again, actually triple duty for me. First off, double options boot camps coming at you because I will be traveling. And we were off last week. It's the first Wednesday we've had off in a long time. Kind of weird. So double dose of options boot camp. Can't blame Dan this time. You got to blame me for traveling. And then after that, I'll be doing our pro Q&A on the pro side with Scott Bauer from Prosper Academy over there. So stay tuned for that. Get those questions in now if you have them. Thursday, of course, we're back again for episode 2 for the week of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Most options trading platforms are commission-free, and there are some that don't charge per-contract fees. Public.com goes a step further. When you trade options on Public, there are no commissions, no per-contract fees, and you get a rebate of up to 18 cents per contract traded. That means it costs less than $0 per transaction. In other words, instead of paying to place options trades, you literally earn money, and that money can add up fast. If you trade 1,000 option contracts on Public, you'll earn up to $180 in rebates. 10,000 contracts? Up to almost $1,200. It's pretty obvious why NerdWallet recently gave options trading on Public 5 out of 5 stars. Because Public really stands out for the cost of its options trades. Their words, not ours. If you want to start paying less than $0 to trade options, check out public.com and get a rebate of up to 18 cents per contract traded. Paid for by Public Investing. Options not suitable for all investors and carry significant risk. Full disclosures in podcast description. U.S. members only. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.